Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down the architecture that's powering a whole new kind of internet. And what's so cool about it is it's not just built to move information, it's designed to move value, securely, and without anyone in the middle.
Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. We'll kick things off by comparing the two big network architectures. Then we'll look at who's actually doing the work in these systems. After that, we'll see how they let people exchange value directly. And finally, we'll wrap up with why this is all such a big deal for building a real internet of money.
All right, first things first. To really get what makes peer-to-peer networks, or P2P, so special, we've got to look at the model that has pretty much run the internet for decades. So, that brings us to the big question, right? How is this new peer-to-peer thing really different from the classic client-server model that we're all so used to?
Okay, and right here, this is where you see the fundamental shift. In the client-server world, you've got this one big, powerful central server, and then a bunch of clients, that's us, who just ask it for stuff. But with P2P, that whole top-down structure just evaporates. Everyone on the network isn't equal. You're a peer. You can be a consumer and a provider. It's this massive distributed web where we can all talk directly to each other.
And you know, this client-server model is literally everywhere. Think about it. Every time you send an email, print something over the network, or just browse a website, you're a client and you're talking to a server. It works, for sure. It's super efficient. But it also means there are these single points of control and single points of failure. Okay, so if we're getting rid of that central server in a P2P network, that raises a pretty massive question, doesn't it? Who's doing all the work? Who's keeping track of everything and making sure the system stays honest?
Well, the answer is the participants themselves. We call them nodes. But here's the key. Not all nodes are created equal. They have different jobs to do. So first you've got what are called full nodes. And you can think of these guys as the ultimate archivists of the network, the historians. Why? Because they download and keep a complete copy of the entire blockchain history right from the very beginning. This is absolutely crucial because it's what makes the network trustless. You don't have to trust some central company because anyone can run a full node and verify everything for themselves. They are without a doubt the bedrock of the network's security. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we've got lightweight nodes. You might also hear them called SPV nodes. These are all about efficiency. They're perfect for things like your smartphone. I mean, you're not going to download hundreds of gigabytes of history onto your phone, right? So instead, they just download the block headers, kind of like the chapter titles of the blockchain. They then rely on the full nodes to do the heavy lifting of verifying transactions. It's a clever shortcut called simplified payment verification. So what you're saying here is the classic trade-off, right? Full nodes give you maximum security and total independence, but man, they take up a lot of storage. Lightweight nodes, on the other hand, give us speed and accessibility for day-to-day stuff, but they do it by basically trusting that the full nodes are keeping the network honest. Okay, so let's recap. We've got this decentralized setup, and we have a whole workforce of nodes keeping things running. But so what? What's the point of all this? What does this new architecture actually let us do? And this is where it gets really exciting. The real game changer here is that this peer-to-peer architecture lets us exchange value. And I'm talking money, assets, digital property, you name it, directly from one person to another. No bank, no credit card company, no intermediary needed. I mean, just think about a normal credit card transaction for a second. When you tap your card, it feels instant, right? But behind the curtain, it's this incredibly complex dance. Your payment has to go from the merchant to their bank, then through a card network like Visa or MasterCard, then to your bank, and then all the way back again. And guess what? Every single one of those steps adds fees and takes time. It's anything but direct. Right, so the whole point of P2P is that it just flattens that entire Rube Goldberg machine. It gets rid of all those middlemen. The transaction is just a direct line, a direct message from the sender to the receiver. And it's all recorded and verified by that network of nodes we were just talking about. And this, right here, was the genius insight in the original Bitcoin white paper. See, before this, digital money had this huge fatal flaw called the double spend problem. You could just copy-paste a digital file and spend it over and over. This P2P solution fixed that by creating a public, time-stamped log, a record of every single transaction that's secured by something called proof of work. It makes it almost impossible to cheat the system, and it does it all without needing a central bank. You know, solving that double spend problem, it wasn't just some clever little hack. It required building a whole new foundation from the ground up. And that foundation is built on some really powerful design principles that make this whole Internet of Value a reality. Yeah, you can think of these 5 things as the pillars holding the whole structure up, and they all feed into each other. You've got security, which comes from some really heavy-duty cryptography. You have transparency, because the public ledger is open for anyone to see. Decentralization, which means there's no single point of failure, no one company you can hack or shut down. Immutability is a huge one. It means once a transaction is locked in, it's there forever. You can't go back and change the past. And finally, programmability. This allows us to build automated rules right into the network, creating things like smart contracts that execute all by themselves. No middleman needed for any of it.
Okay, so we've gone through the architecture, the nodes doing the work, and the core design principles. Let's pull back for a second. What's the big picture takeaway? Why does the shift from client-server to peer-to-peer actually matter so much?
When you boil it all down, it's really about one thing: control. Over the last few decades, the internet we know and love has gotten more and more centralized. A handful of massive companies act as the gatekeepers for pretty much everything we do online: our data, how we communicate, our business. What P2P networks offer is a different path. It's a path towards a more decentralized web, one that puts control back in the hands of users, and maybe, just maybe, creates a more level playing field. And that really leaves us with a pretty powerful question to chew on. The first version of the internet made information basically borderless and free to move. So if this new P2P architecture can do the exact same thing for value, what does that change? What does that unlock for finance, for creators, for how we even organize ourselves as a global society? It's a big thought. Hey, if you got some value out of this breakdown and you want to see more explainers like this one, the best thing you can do is like, share, and subscribe. It really helps other people find the content. Thanks so much for tuning in.